Hello everyone, and welcome to Asian Chapter. Today, we will be looking into the history of the Vietnam War. As always, before we dive into the topic, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell, so you never miss an update from us. The Vietnam War was a conflict that lasted for over 2 decades, from 1955 to 1975, and remains a significant and controversial event in history. It was fought between the Communist government of North Vietnam, supported by China and the Soviet Union, and the non-communist government of South Vietnam, backed by the United States and other allies. The war was fought using a variety of military tactics, including guerrilla warfare and air strikes, and resulted in the loss of millions of lives on both sides, including soldiers and civilians. In this video, we'll take a closer look at the Vietnam War and provide a suspenseful retelling of the conflict between the USA and North Vietnam. We'll explore the historical background that led to the war, the key events and battles that occurred, the dramatic moments that added to the suspense, and the aftermath of the war. So sit back, and let's delve into the Vietnam War, one of the most gripping and important events in history. The Vietnam War was a prolonged and deadly conflict that occurred between the years 1955 and 1975. The conflict involved North Vietnam, which was supported by the Soviet Union and China, and South Vietnam, which was supported by the United States and its allies. The roots of the war can be traced back to the early 20th century, when Vietnam was still a French colony. In the years following World War II, Vietnamese nationalists fought to gain independence from French colonial rule. By the 1950s, the country was divided into 2 halves, North Vietnam, which was led by Communist leader Ho Chi Minh, and South Vietnam, which was ruled by a non-communist government backed by the United States. The division of Vietnam was not accepted by Ho Chi Minh and his supporters, who sought to reunify the country under a communist government. Meanwhile, the United States feared the spread of communism and saw South Vietnam as a key ally in containing its influence in Southeast Asia. The opposing sides had different ideologies and goals. The North Vietnamese Army and the Viet Cong sought to reunify the country under communist rule, while the South Vietnamese government and its allies aimed to defend democracy and prevent the spread of communism. Tensions between the 2 sides escalated in the early 1960s, leading to the deployment of U.S. troops in 1965. The conflict quickly turned into a brutal and deadly war, with both sides using sophisticated military tactics and weapons. The Vietnam War had a significant impact on civilians and soldiers alike. The use of chemical weapons, such as Agent Orange, caused widespread environmental damage and long-term health problems for Vietnamese and American troops. The war also led to the displacement of millions of people and the loss of countless lives. The course of the war can be divided into several key phases, each with its own significant events and battles. In the early years of the war, the United States provided military and financial assistance to the South Vietnamese government, which was fighting against communist forces in the north. The U.S. believed that if South Vietnam fell to communism, other countries in the region would follow, a concept known as the domino theory. However, as the conflict intensified, the U.S. began to deploy its own troops in South Vietnam. The first major battle involving American troops was the Battle of Ya Drong in 1965, which was fought against the North Vietnamese Army. Military relied heavily on air power, dropping bombs and napalm on enemy targets. Meanwhile, the North Vietnamese and the Viet Cong used guerrilla tactics, such as ambushes and booby traps, to inflict heavy casualties on American troops. One of the most controversial aspects of the war was the use of chemical weapons, such as Agent Orange, which were designed to destroy vegetation and deny cover to enemy troops. However, these chemicals had devastating long-term effects on the health of both Vietnamese and American soldiers, causing cancers, birth defects, and other illnesses. The Tet Offensive of 1968 was a turning point in the war, as the North Vietnamese and the Viet Cong launched a surprise attack on several major cities in South Vietnam, including the capital, Saigon. Although the offensive was eventually repelled, it demonstrated the determination and strength of the communist forces. As the war dragged on, protests against U.S. involvement in Vietnam grew in intensity both at home and abroad. The anti-war movement was fueled by growing casualties, reports of atrocities committed by U.S. troops, and a sense that the war was not winnable. In 1973, the Paris Peace Accords were signed, which provided for a ceasefire and the withdrawal of U.S. troops from Vietnam. However, fighting continued between North and South Vietnam, and in 1975, the North Vietnamese Army launched a massive invasion of the South, ultimately leading to the fall of Saigon and the reunification of Vietnam under communist rule. The Vietnam War had a profound impact on both the soldiers who fought in it and the civilians who were caught in the middle of the conflict. The war claimed the lives of millions of people, destroyed entire villages, and left many veterans with physical and emotional scars that lasted a lifetime. It also had significant political and cultural implications, fueling anti-war sentiment and sparking debates about the role of the U.S. in international conflicts. The Vietnam War had a lasting impact on Vietnam, the United States, and the world at large. The war had devastated Vietnam's infrastructure and economy, with estimates suggesting that up to 3 million Vietnamese civilians were killed, and much of the country's agricultural land was destroyed. Furthermore, the use of chemical weapons such as Agent Orange resulted in severe environmental damage, causing long-term health problems for both Vietnamese and American soldiers and their families. The war also had significant political consequences. In the United States, the war had divided the country and sparked widespread protests against the government's policies. The war had a profound impact on U.S. foreign policy, leading to increased skepticism and caution in future military interventions. Additionally, the war had a profound impact on the Cold War, as the U.S.'s failure to defeat the North Vietnamese undermined the credibility of the U.S. The Vietnam War was a lesson to be learned, and it has left an indelible mark on history. It served as a reminder of the brutality of war and its impact on civilians and soldiers. It highlighted the importance of diplomacy and peaceful conflict resolution. The Vietnam War remains a significant event that will continue to be studied and analyzed for generations to come. We must remember the lessons learned from this conflict and work to prevent such events from happening in the future. Thanks for watching this video and taking the time to learn more about the topic. I hope you found it insightful and informative. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and leave a comment below. Your feedback helps us improve our content and create more videos that you'll love. Also, don't forget to subscribe to Asian Chapter for more exciting videos on Asia and its many fascinating cultures. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.